taller than you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
There's a theme this morning.
Love all the colours on.
Great dress for Anna.
So just look down there. Good with that? Probably that. Good to go? The Palaszczuk Labor government backs small business. We've made it very clear that if we are going to make the economic recovery we need in Queensland, supporting small business has to be front and centre of everything we do. Even the fact that we've made such a strong health recovery means that small businesses, all businesses, have been able to stay open longer. It's businesses like Susie Wilson, who's the owner of Riverbend Books in my electorate here, who tells me every time I see her that her business could not have survived without our support during COVID. We backed small business during COVID, we backed it through our election commitments, and from this week I am going out across Queensland on our small business roadshow to talk to businesses about where they are in the COVID cycle now and what is the support they need from us now. And it will be different to the middle of last year. It will be different in every region. And we need to hear about that to make sure that we are doing our best to support them. So I'm starting in Gladstone on Tuesday, and I'll be going to 17 different locations across the state. We already have had to shift to bigger venues because they're so popular in many of the regions already. But we're saying to people, if you can't come to those, we'll have virtual online sessions, we'll have surveys, and there'll be lots of other ways. We want to hear from you, and we encourage everyone to take part. I'll just hand over to Susie to talk about what the support's meant for her.
Thanks, Di. Last year was an incredibly difficult year for all of us, and my heart actually went out to small businesses all over the state and country as we all tried to navigate these very rocky, tricky times. And getting support from the government with the specifics of the crisis was an extraordinary feeling. I think maybe one of the elephants in the room always economically for me is the fact that large businesses such as Amazon have had such a free ride in this country, not having to pay GST for 20 years while small businesses like mine collected it. And so I think we felt disadvantaged for a long time, and then suddenly in this crisis I experienced this extraordinary thing of feeling really supported, and these Queensland Government Small Business COVID Adaptation Grants, they were called. They were easy to apply for, they were practical, that we could nominate how and where we needed support, which we received, and which allowed us to feel much more creative and energetic about working our way through the problems of COVID. As I said to Di, I really felt supported, and I think possibly in small business a lot of us sometimes don't, and it was just a great feeling to feel so supported. So yes, we've still got an interesting year ahead, I think, and we're, as Di said, we're all at different stages. I think she was alluding to some of the things we just briefly talked about before. I'm very concerned about NBN, the rollout of NBN, and apparently they're going to use copper wires to get into my business, and I know what working through copper wires was like several years ago when I wouldn't have phones for days at a time, and the effect of that on business can be catastrophic. So that's my particular concern. I imagine Di's going to hear about a lot of other concerns in the coming days.
How much money did you get from your grant? What did you do?
My $10,000 I used initially to set up online book clubs. We all very quickly learned how to Zoom, like a lot of people, and so we had some training with our book club coordinators and even our book club members in how to use Zoom. So we very successfully transitioned to Zoom book clubs. We have 30 book clubs at Riverbend of different sorts, classics, contemporary fiction, teachers, all the rest of it. So that was the initial stages. We also started actually new book clubs specifically online so that members could join from the wider Queensland community, and I thought that was a really nice thing to do, particularly during COVID, to increase people's sense of community if they were feeling isolated. So that was a big part of COVID. An infectious diseases specialist said to me, I said to him, how do I keep my staff safe during all of this, and what do you think I could do best? And he said, increase the ventilation. Your shop is not well ventilated enough, and don't have your staff standing under, or customers under air conditioning, whatever you call them. Yeah. And so we put in a huge window, which is just up there, and it allowed cross ventilation. We turned off our air conditioning, and everyone felt a lot safer not having air conditioning on. So yeah, that was a...
Sorry, can I also ask, how hard has it been to operate a business in this kind of situation where one case changed the number of people you're allowed in the shops, and it changed all the time?
Yeah, I think everyone's mental health is affected by the rapidity of change, and that 3-day lockdown, the suddenness of it was, oh goodness, this is not over. And being in January at the beginning of the year, I feel very concerned about looking after everyone on my staff's mental health and the anxiety of customers. Doing things like the window really makes my staff and my customers feel a lot more comfortable coming here in the sense that they know I'm focused on doing the best I possibly can for them and for the community. I also think things like bookshops, and there are other businesses the same, hairdressers, they're where people come and feel good in those places, and there's a whole life, a whole community life associated with a lot of small businesses. And you can't underestimate that aspect of the whole situation. I even think people like your local mechanic, if they know the conversations that happen. So yeah. Yeah, it's challenging. I think we all are very aware of the challenge, and so yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting year ahead. I'm very grateful that our local politicians are working with us all the time and talking to us about how to work, sharing ideas about how we're all working, and yeah, that's comforting as well as kind of stimulating in the sense that there's always more things you can do. That's the exciting thing, I think. We've probably actually innovated more in the last year than we have in the last 5 years, inspired by the need to, and also having a bit of help with funds to cover that.
Any other questions for Susie? Okay, questions for me. So we allocated just under $200 million to those grants. and that's over 900 small businesses receive them. We quarantined some grants for regional areas, and we are still receiving applications for those. Well, it'll depend. The small businesses can get up to $10,000, and we have about $16 million left in that grant round. So it'll just depend on what small businesses are applying for. But we're very, very keen for those regional businesses to take up that offer. The small businesses have to show that they've suffered a 30% decrease in their revenue, and also that they employ more than one person. But really, the grants are about helping businesses adapt to the effects of COVID, and that's been the wonderful thing about them. As Susie said, it's been the money that's been helpful for specific actions. Sometimes it's actually about helping with cash flow, but it's actually making people look at their business and think, the world is a different place now, and what do I need to do to adapt?
In a lot of places, for example, in a lot of these regional areas, they have been really affected by COVID in terms of cases, but yet have been subject to the lockdown restrictions that have been put up throughout the state. Are you expecting a backlash from businesses about how they've been forced to comply?
I talked to small businesses across the state. We were just in Townsville this week, and I met with a number of small businesses there. We want to hear what their views are on the way we've managed COVID, the way we've communicated about COVID, how it's affected them, and what sort of support we offer them. That is the reason for going to 17 different locations across the state. We'll be in Western Queensland, we'll be in far North Queensland. We are going to a lot of places, and we want to know, where are they at now, as opposed to during lockdown or even the end of last year. Where are they at now, and what do we need to do to provide the best support?
Once COVID breakthroughs have been found in wastewater in different places around Queensland, is it worrying that there's places that are not anywhere near quarantine hotels?
The Chief Health Officer is monitoring waste systems across Queensland on a daily basis. On any one day, there are a certain number that are showing positive results. And just yesterday, obviously, the Acting Chief Health Officer referred to several areas in particular. The reason we are talking about this is just to make sure that everybody knows we can never drop the ball on this. We are doing so well in Queensland. Everyone has worked incredibly hard, but we only have to look at the cases overseas. We passed the 100 million mark this week to know that at any point we could be vulnerable. So we just want to remind people, if you even have the mildest symptoms, if in doubt, get tested and then stay at home until you know your test results. Look, in general, that's my understanding, is that that's going to change every day. The strongest message and the most important message is, wherever you are, whether you're one of those places where you are showing positive results in the wastewater, wherever you are, if you have even the mildest symptoms, please get tested. That is the way we have managed COVID so successfully. And we just need to find as many different ways to say to people, even though we're doing so well now, please do not for 1 minute take that for granted.
Is that the worry though, obviously with that lockdown and we managed to contain that behaviour into the hotel quarantine system? Is there a worry that because everything seems to be okay and there's not COVID as we know it in the community, that there might be some places?
Look, that is always a risk. You've heard the Chief Health Officer and the Premier say so many times how well Queenslanders have done, and they have. You know, Queenslanders do everything that is asked of them. Even in the 3-day lockdown, people just did it. They just knew they had to do it. We knew we could not allow that UK variant to get out into the community. People understand the risk, but we have to keep on saying it over and over again because we are doing so well. But that happened because we work so hard at it. Look, what happened this week has broken everybody's hearts, and to see what has happened to the family of that young couple, Kate and Matt, to see how they're suffering is just devastating for everybody to see. And we know that a person has been charged with murder and that there are possible other charges pending. There will be a coroner's inquiry, and we need to see the results of those investigations before we understand it fully. But I say to you very clearly, our Youth Justice Act makes it very clear that if you are a risk to the community or you are at risk of reoffending, then you should be detained. If we need to make other changes to our Youth Justice Act, then that's what we will do, and that's what the Premier has said. We know that there's a small number of offenders who are committing nearly 50% of the crime. There has been a 30% decrease in youth crime in the last 10 years, but it's this small group of serious offenders, and that's where a lot of our efforts are aimed. But the community wants answers, and so do we. Regarding the Townsville situation, I understand that that's still evolving, and perhaps there'll be some more information available about that later in the day. The government has committed $500 million to reforming youth justice, and that is the reason that we have seen a reduction in youth crime successively, particularly over the last couple of years, where we have turned around youth crime in general. However, there remains this hard core of serious repeat offenders who commit, that's about 10% of youth offenders who commit almost 50% of the crime, and our investment has gone to addressing particularly those repeat offenders, which has included a significant investment in building more youth detention facilities. So we have our eyes directly on youth crime. The community expects us to deliver results, and that's what we are doing, but we will continue to do it because no one wants to see happen what happened this week. No one can bear it. Good. Sorry, you had a bit of trouble parking.